and welcome back to the CBJ podcast. It's great to have Cam back with us after a couple episodes of him not joining us. But Jason, Cam, and myself are going to talk. This episode, we're going to discuss NBA playoffs and a recap of this week's play-in tournament games. We're going to go through our NBA award predictions. We're going to recap you of all the NHL playoff games that have happened so far. We're going to talk about our Super Bowl 56 predictions, and at the end, we got a special guest joining us for a little Q&A. So, without further ado, Jason, take it away with the NBA recap.
Yes, the NBA play-in tournament is now complete. There were 6 games that we had. They were a lot of them were blowouts, a lot of them were crunch time games, very close ones, and we saw a lot of thrillers. So the first game, we're just gonna kind of recap this. It was a 10 seed versus 9 seed game in the East where the Pacers beat the Hornets 144-117. That game would eliminate the Hornets, and the Pacers would have another opportunity to make the playoffs. To move on to the East playing final for a chance at the 8th seed in a game where the winner would play the Sixers. On the East 8 versus 7 seed game, the Celtics ended up being the Wizards 118-100. So the Celtics would move on to be the 7th seed in the first round. Then the Wizards were set to play the Pacers in a winner-go-home game for the 8th seed to play Philly in the first round. Then over in the West, we had the 10 seed versus 9 seed game. It was a very competitive game. The Grizzlies took a really early lead, but the Spurs almost had a fantastic comeback. But then we did see John Morant, Jonas Valanciunas, and the Grizzlies come up on top to eliminate San Antonio Spurs. It's their second straight season not making the playoffs after a 22-year streak with Coach Greg Popovich from 1997 to 2019, which is very impressive. The Grizzlies would move on to a West play-in final for a chance at the 8th seed to play the Utah Jazz. The 8th seed versus 7th seed game, that was definitely up there for a game of the year. Warriors-Lakers. The Warriors were up by a lot in the first half. Steph Curry was shooting lights out. He couldn't be stopped. Wiggins, Draymond, they were all doing their thing. And then the Lakers, LeBron, AD, and Shooter, they were shooting a combined 3 for 27 at close to halftime. And they come back having a fantastic second half. LeBron hit the dagger with about a minute left, and the Lakers would move on to play the Phoenix Suns in the first round of the playoffs. And the Warriors would have an opportunity to play for the 8th seed. Then we go back to the East for the East final. The Wizards beat the Pacers 142-115. It was a blowout. It makes sense because the Pacers, they were very short-handed. They didn't have Karis LeVert, who was unlucky for him because he was put in the play-in protocols. TJ Ward, remember he had those 50-point games in the bubble last year. Then Miles Turner, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA right now, along with good bench piece Jeremy Lamb. So that put the Wizards into the playoffs to play the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round. And then last night, that was one of the best games that I've seen all year. It's probably up there with that Lakers-Warriors game. The Grizzlies did beat the Warriors 117-112 in overtime. Steph Curry was pretty incredible in that game. He was shooting lights out as always, but he was getting triple teamed for most of the game, so he couldn't really shoot as much as Warriors preferred. The Grizzlies contained him well, and it was John Morant that was having his best game of his NBA career just in his second season at age 21. He has great leadership, and the Grizzlies are playing the Jazz now in the first round, and the Warriors are eliminated. But it is good for the Warriors because next year they will have Klay Thompson back, James Wiseman, Kelly Oubre, and they'll have a lottery pick. So overall, this season, it really wasn't a failure for the Warriors, but I'm sure they wish that they could, get some more playoff action. So now we get to the point where we have to ask the question, do we think the play-in tournament was a success and was an accurate representation of the correct seeding? Brandon, we're going to go to you first.
Yeah, I personally think the NBA play-in tournament is a good way to add excitement to the NBA playoffs, where you don't just have the top 8 seeds automatically advance. You have 7 through 10 fighting for spots. And recently we heard Adam Silver say that the play-in tournament is going to stay for the next couple years, because it seems like the message around the NBA teams is that they like it because it gives teams who may not make the playoffs because they're a 9 or 10 seed now a chance. And then obviously, because only 10 teams make it, the 11 seed could just miss out, and so there's more excitement for teams to make the playoffs.
I don't really know what to make of it. At first, I was like, why can't the 7 play the 10 and the 8 play the 9 and the winners go that? But then I was thinking about it more, and I'm like, it's kind of a good idea that the 7 and 8 teams have a second chance if they lose. They play the winner of the 9-10, and the 9-10 only gets one chance to make it to that second game. Then they have to win that game. So in that aspect, it's kind of fair and unfair in that way also, because it's like unfair for the 9-10 teams. But yet again, they're the 9 and 10 seed, and they wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway. So I think it's a good concept and a good idea, but no, there could be. We definitely saw some negativity from it. A bunch of players didn't like it, including LeBron. He said he wanted to get rid of it, but I think it's a good idea for those teams like 11, the 12, 11, those seeds down there, because they can like at the end of the season still more competition to get into the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I like the traditional 7 and 8 seed. I think they should just go back to that, as that's what it's been, and no need to change the playoffs that have been around for so many years, and just keep it the way it is. Yes, this is a good idea, and it worked. I think it worked pretty well, but I say just keep it traditional for the playoffs.
There were a few reasons why this play-in tournament was created. One specifically was that there was only 72 games this season for each team versus the normal 82. So I think if you add more games, it's a little bit more of a fair representation. I think that's kind of what they're going for. And also, after a COVID year, you're going to need a lot more money for revenue from all those games, because that Warriors-Lakers game, they got so many viewers. It was like record-breaking. I heard something about that. And I think that Adam Silver made a genius move doing that, for at least the NBA making a lot of money. And we got to see the best of the best play with LeBron and Steph that one game, and some other great games. But the thing is, next year they're planning on having an 82 game season. So I am kind of curious if they do keep the play-in tournament, because they've only used it this year and last year. Last year they used it for a tiebreaker in the bubble between the Grizzlies and the Trailblazers, because those teams had the same record, and they couldn't really figure out who had the advantage, because they played like 70, and they also played 72 games that year. They tried to get around that. So that's definitely something that comes up. But the way that they organize it, 7 versus 8, 9 versus 10, I do like that, because like Cam mentioned, you get another chance if you're the higher seed, because you're a bit more deserving of making the playoffs. But I do think the 7 and 8 seed, they generally do deserve to make the playoffs. And I don't know if that's just me saying, oh, I want to see Steph Curry in the playoffs, because he was so close to getting in there with the Warriors. But then it seems like this idea went pretty well, and if they do continue it, I wouldn't mind it. But I just feel like it definitely is a bit of a change from what we've seen in the past. And if it is new and it's going to be incorporated permanently, I'm not really opposed to it. It would just take a lot of adapting to get to. So we kind of covered all the big surprises. I guess the Grizzlies upsetting the Lakers. If you guys have anything to add on that, you can. We also had the Warriors.
Yeah, I want to just add one more thing, and it's what you guys talked about with this whole 72 game season. It was shorter games, so having them play in tournament is good. And yes, it's tough, but I wonder. And the big question is, what will Adam Silver and the NBA do moving forward when we go back to a normal year? But the past 2 years, having this type of playoff bubble, I think it's exciting. Starting up playoff bubble, play-in tournament is great. And it's just more exciting, especially with a year where we haven't had many fans. It's been a great way for more people to watch and get more excited. And I like how these games are just one game and done, and makes it quick. You don't have to have a long series before you start the regular playoffs. So having a one game playing match is good for the 7 through 10 teams. Moving on, we're going to talk about the playoff matches. So in the West, it's the Grizzlies against the Jazz, Lakers against the Suns, Trailblazers versus Nuggets, and Mavs versus Clippers. I want to ask both of you, what do you think is going to be the best series in the West, and will we see a battle of the two LA teams, Clippers and Lakers, this year?
I do think that we'll see a battle of the LA teams, Clippers and Lakers, because this year, when fully healthy, those teams are so dominant. I would say that teams like the Jazz and the Suns, they had great regular seasons. You also got to look at it is that they had an easy schedule. Their strength of schedule wasn't that high, if I remember correctly. I mean, they did have some great wins, but they also lost to some pretty bad teams. So I personally think the Suns are kind of a fluke, but you have that Chris Paul effect that we've talked about in the past. Every team Chris Paul goes to, all 5 of his franchises that he's played for, their win percentage goes up and the team looks a lot better out there. So I mean, I wouldn't really count the Suns, but my favorite matchup here and the one that I'm looking at is Lakers Suns, because the Suns as a 2 seed, it was very surprising. We thought that they'd probably sneak into the playoffs if they were lucky. I mean, the Suns did come off red hot in the bubble going 8-0, but they were just short of making that small play in the West. And Devin Booker was on a roll, and he's still doing it this year. And we've seen development of DeAndre in the 2018 number 1 overall pick. And then for the Lakers, once they find their groove, because it takes a while during the games, they're going to start slumping at some points. I don't expect this Lakers-Suns series to be a 4-game sweep for the Lakers. I could see it go 5, 6, probably even 7 games because of how well that Suns team plays together. If LeBron James and Anthony Davis are 100% themselves, I think that they will easily win. But it's looking like it's going to take a while for them to get into that groove. And I'm not really sure if they're going to do it right away, but I am confident that the Lakers will win that series. And with the Clippers, like we talked about, meeting in the Battle of LA, that Mavericks matchup, it's a rematch from last year. They are playing right now. It is the second half as we speak. It's a pretty good game. And the Clippers, they have a tough road to that conference final spot. We can't count out Luka. He's been hitting game winners like crazy on them. We don't know if Paul George is going to return to his normal playoff P form instead of pandemic P, as they like to say. He's having a solid game today. And then if they do advance, they have to play probably like the winner of the Jazz Grizzlies. And the Jazz, they look legit to me when Donovan Mitchell is healthy. So, I mean, the Clippers, if they can get to the conference finals to play the Lakers, I think we'll have one of the best conference final series of all time, Battle of LA.
I got to agree with Jason there. I think LA and Suns, that is definitely the best matchup. First time, and if I remember correctly, like 30 plus years that the 7 seed is favored over the 2 seed, according to the sport book. So, but a 7 seed is favored over a 2 seed, that's never a good thing. You don't really want to see that, but I think that's the best matchup. And I have the Jazz coming out of the West. I think they're a dominant team. The Grizzlies came out hot, but they're still the 8 seed, and I think the Jazz are a very good team. I think they can come out of the Western Division.
Yeah, I think all eyes are on the Jazz with the best record this year. Can they keep it up in the playoffs? A lot of teams can do well in regular season, but feel the pressure when playoff time comes and sometimes start to fall like we saw with the Clippers last year. I think the Lakers-Suns matchup in the West is going to be great. I think the Jazz will win either in 4 or 5 games against Grizzly, but I think everyone's anticipating a great matchup between the Mavs and Clippers, and I think the Clippers are still mad that they lost to the Mavs last year. In the East, we got the Wizards playing the 76ers, the Celtics playing the Nets, Heat versus the Bucks, and the Hawks versus the Knicks. Earlier today, we're filming on Saturday, May 22nd. We had Game 1 of Heat versus Bucks happen and went to overtime. So the Bucks have a 1-0 lead. But I'll start with Kim on this one. Who do you think the Nets are still favorites out of the East? And if not, who is?
I hate to admit it, but I do still think the Nets are the favorite out of the East. I do not want them to go all the way. The worst thing in the world for a Celtics fan would be Nets versus Lakers in the finals, because I wouldn't want to root for either team to win. Might end up having to choose the Lakers because I do not want the Nets to win after cheating their way to get the top 2nd seed with all those big stars. If they're 76ers versus Nets in the conference championship, I think that would be a very good series, and I do think the Nets would come up on top. But I think the Nets are favored. The Bucks are also a very good team. The Knicks are a good team this year, surprisingly. But I think Even though they're the 2 seed, I think the Nets are still the favorite as they have all those big names in Kyrie, Harden, Durant. I mean, you have those three guys on one team. I don't really know who can stop you. So I think I have Nets versus Jazz in the finals. I hope it's not the Lakers, and I hope if the Nets are in the finals, whoever they're playing wins. So, your thoughts, Jason?
Yeah, I do think the Nets are the favorites to make it out of the East. I don't really think there's much competition. The only way that I can see the Nets have some trouble is if their defense is just god awful and they're allowing over 120 points per game, which that did happen when right after they got James Harden, because Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, I'd say Kevin Durant is an above average defender, but Kyrie and James Harden, I mean James Harden's kind of up and down, and Kyrie's not really known for his defense, so you can't really expect that much defense from a team like that because they also don't have many centers. DeAndre Jordan's not really playing that much for them. They obviously traded away Jarrett Allen in order to acquire Harden. And you still have Nicholas Claxton, who is a great up and coming player who I think can be big in these playoffs. And for the Nets, I just think their big thing is just keeping their guys healthy. The reason that they fell to the 2 seed, they would easily be the 1 seed. And that's because their team has only played 8 games together. That trio of superstars, just 8 games. That's very few minutes together, and their chemistry needs to get a little stronger. We know Harden and KD played together back in OKC in the early 2010s and the late 2000s. And they were playing pretty well. James Harden was a six man. They went to the finals one year to lose to LeBron the Heat, but it was a great team. And you had Kyrie to that mix. It's scary. Now they're all in their prime. I think this is finals or bust for that team. KD's 32, Harden's like 30, 31, Kyrie's 29. They're kind of in their primes, and they can't. I don't know if they're gonna get any better. So I think this is the time to get to the finals and win. But if there is a team that would probably compete with the Nets, I'd say the winner of this Heat Bucks series, because the way it's matched up is that the 3 seed winner of 3 seed versus 6 seed plays the winner of a 2 seed versus 7 seed. And I'm like 99.9% sure that the Nets will beat the Celtics. But this Bucks Heat series is very controversial. I think this is going to 7 games, and whoever wins that, I think, could force the Nets to 7 games because of those teams are elite on defense and they can stop teams like the Nets, because we saw how slow paced that game was today, and they only got up to 107, 109 points in overtime. That's 53 minutes of basketball. So it shows how kind of slow paced and defensive heavy that game was. So I do have the Nets getting out of the East, and I do think they're going to be playing the Lakers. But like Cam said, if the Jazz are there, I would be really happy, and I'd definitely root for the Jazz.
Yeah, I think this Heat Bucks series is going to be great, but I think one series that isn't getting a lot of anticipation, and that's just because these teams aren't known for playoffs, and it's the Hawks versus Knicks, the 4-5 matchup, and this is a series where having home field as a 4 isn't that much because the team you're facing is a 5, and it could have been either way. These teams were basically even until the last day of the regular season. So this is gonna be a great matchup, and I think it'll be a great series. But I think the Nets will be the favorites out of the East. And my hope is we do not have a Nets Lakers game, just like Kim mentioned. Jason, well, we have NBA awards. You want to share with everyone what they are?
Yeah, the finalists have come out for 6 of the NBA's major awards. There are obviously some other minor awards like Executive of the Year, Sportsmanship Award, but the 6 major awards, the ones that everyone's been talking about, the NBA and NBA.com themselves have released the 3 finalists for each award. First, the MVP award, we have Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. We're getting to our analysis on this and our predictions in a bit. We're just going to go through the finals again. And then we got the Rookie of the Year. We got Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timberwolves, LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets, Tyrese Halliburton of the Sacramento Kings. Sixth Man of the Year, Jordan Clarkson of the Utah Jazz, Joe Ingles of the Utah Jazz, and Derrick Rose of the New York Knicks. Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz, Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers, Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors, Then we got most improved, Julius Randle of the New York Knicks, Jeremy Grant of the Detroit Pistons, Michael Porter Jr. of the Denver Nuggets. And then we get the coach of the year. This one's pretty controversial in my opinion. You got Quinn Snyder of the Utah Jazz, Monty Williams of the Phoenix Suns, and then Tom Thibodeau of the New York Knicks. So first, I think we got to start off strong with the big award, MVP. I think these three candidates have been fantastic, and they all three have good arguments and resumes for this award. Yes, injuries may have screwed over some of these guys and record. But I'm actually gonna go start with my pick. I got Nikola Jokic of the Nuggets. I think he definitely defines the role of MVP, most valuable player. He played all 72 games this year for the Denver Nuggets, averaging around like 26, 11, and 8, which is record breaking for a center. Eight assists for a center. That is record breaking, I think, if not mistaken. Maybe like Wilt Chamberlain did something like that back in the day. That's pretty impressive. And then Jokic in double figures in rebounds, and he had a career high in assists by Miles. He had like his PER was really high, his plus minus, all those advanced stats we all talk about. His efficiency was phenomenal. And with an injury prone Nuggets team with Jamal Murray out for the year, Michael Porter Jr. missing a lot of time, I think Jokic, he's definitely taking this team miles ahead of what we thought they'd be. So we're going to be going through our list individually. I'm going to go through my list, give a bit smaller analysis on this because we are saving time for our guests. Rookie of the year, I think it's a two-man race. I say Halliburton's the odd man out. I got Edwards and LaMelo. I do think the LaMelo injury does screw him over. He is better than Edwards, but I will take Edwards just because he played the majority of the season and he averaged close to 25 points post All-Star break, which is something that is very impressive. And the Timberwolves, their young core is trying to come together. They won a lot of games at the end of the year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're a team that fights for the 8th seed. They do have to put it together because Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, they're two young players that are getting up there in age for young players or more veterans now at age 25 each. But I think Anthony Edwards is a stud and a star. Sixth man of the year. All three of these players have played the six-man role so well. You got Derrick Rose, the former MVP back in 2011, I believe, with the Chicago Bulls before that major injury. I think Derrick Rose would have been one of the best point guards of all time if he never suffered that injury. You got Joe Ingles of the Utah Jazz, who's been a playmaker for them off the bench. And then he started those games when Donovan Mitchell went down a little late in the season. And he's been playing fantastic. He's a good distributor. He can play the 1 through the 4. He's kind of like a point forward, I would say. And then Jordan Clarkson, his teammate, that is my pick because he has been an explosive scorer, around 18 points a game. He's doing his thing. He is just a bucket getter that you need to hit his shots. He has some slumps, but I think he's going to be good. Defensive player of the year. I think Ben Simmons, I don't think Ben Simmons is deserving of this award. A lot of people say he is, but I honestly would take Bam Adebayo over Ben Simmons. And Bam Adebayo is not even a finalist. Draymond, he's always a good defender. He's won the DPOY award before. Don't think it's him. I got to go with Rudy Gobert. His shot blocking ability is just insane. One of the best shot blockers of this era. And I think he's going to be a 3-time defensive player of the year by the end of the year. Most improved, if we're talking about player in general, I do think it would probably go like Jeremy Grant because his usage rate went up. He was getting a lot of shots on a Detroit Pistons team that was not that good. If you look at Michael Porter Jr. on the Denver Nuggets, he averaged 19 points this year. With the Jamal Murray injury, he stepped up as a perfect second option for Jokic during this time. But I'm going with Julius Randle because he led that Knicks team who hasn't made the playoffs in so many years to the 5 seed, averaging 24, 11, and 6, or 24, 10, and 6. Can't remember his stats correctly. On good efficiency and good defense too. And I think Julius Randle perfectly finds that award, and I'm rooting for the Knicks to beat the Hawks in that first round. Then Coach of the Year, I've been a bit mixed on this. I'm going Monty Williams on the Phoenix Suns just because the coaches themselves, they had a coach poll. They voted a majority Monty Williams for Coach of the Year. He seems to be favored. I think Quinn Snyder deserves a lot of credit for getting the Jazz up to that 1 seed because some people didn't have them making the playoffs last year, surprisingly, or this year, surprisingly. The New York Knicks also, Tom Thibodeau deserves a lot of credit for bringing his team from the bottom to the playoffs. And they're going to be pretty good. I also don't remember if Knicks are the 4 seed or 5 seed, but they're going to be a great team. I think Tom Thibodeau deserves some credit. So I'm going Monty Williams with the Suns just because he took that Chris Paul effect and put it into action. And look, the Suns are the 2 seed.
All right, my NBA awards. So, MVP, I personally think Jokic deserves it. Obviously, playing all 72 games is impressive, and I think I want to go Steph Curry, but just that the Warriors team hasn't really been well, especially without having Klay Thompson, and they didn't even make the playoffs with the play-in tournament role. So it's tough to give him MVP. Rookie of the year, I personally think Anthony Edwards, just because I had a tie between Edwards and Ball, but the tiebreaker was that Ball was injured for a few games and a few weeks, and we didn't get to see him for every game. And I think Anthony Edwards played it as many more games than Ball, and that's why he's my Rookie of the Year. Sixth Man of the Year, I'm gonna go with Derrick Rose, and I just think that he deserves it. Defensive Player of the Year, I'm gonna have to go with Rudy Gobert. He is just incredible with his size. He just gets blocks. Him and Jokic are probably one of the two best centers, at least top two centers in the NBA. Most improved player, I'm gonna go with Julius Randle, just because the Knicks have been so good this year, and he's taken the team to the 5th seed. And Coach of the Year, I'm gonna go with Quinn Snyder, as he took the new Utah Jazz to the best record in 2021. Cam, what's your NBA award?
I'm going a little different for the MVP. I got to go with Steph Curry. I mean, he's had an unbelievable year. The amount of points he's put up and the record he set with like most points and 3-pointers. Yeah, like I think it was like 10 plus 3-pointers in like I don't know, 30 games, something like that. I don't know. Something crazy like that, 30 points in like a streak of 10 games, something like that. I'm not too sure. But he's had an unbelievable year. He's helped that Warriors team so much. Without him, the Warriors would be so bad. They would be so bad. So I got to go with him for MVP. He's had an amazing year, helped that team so much, carried them to the playoffs. We heard some things like the Steph effect, down 13, then up 30 in a matter of 10 minutes. That's the Steph effect right there. He's got unbelievable range, and we saw in the All-Star game him shooting from like half court, turning around. So I gotta go with Steph with the MVP. As for Rookie of the Year, I gotta go with LaMelo Ball. I know that injury he had kind of hurt him, took away some of his games, but the games he has played, he's been an unbelievable player. He's made so many great plays, helped that team out, and he's got a bright future. He's gonna be a stud going into next season and years to come. As for Sixth Man of the Year, I gotta go with Derrick Rose. He's been great coming off the bench and should be really helping out his team. As Defensive Player of the Year, I got Draymond Green. He's always a good player. I just saw a stat saying he had more assists and more rebounds than he did points in the whole year. And I think that is crazy. He's one of the first players to do that, and that is a crazy stat. That is unbelievable how someone can be able to get more assists and more rebounds and points, as point counts as 2 when you get 1 basket. So basically got double the amount of assists and rebounds, and that is really good, and that's a crazy stat. So, and he's made a great defensive steals and blocks. So I got to go with Draymond there. As for most improved, like you said before, I got to go with Julius Randle, helping that Knicks team out, make them playoffs for the first time in a bunch of years. Knicks have been such a bad team, and he's really carried this team to a new level of where they are now. And we'll see how they do in the playoffs. We'll see how he does in the playoffs, but I think he's most improved and really helping his team out. As for Coach of the Year, I got to go with Quinn Snyder, coach of the Jazz. They're the best team in the league, best record, so I got to go with him, as it seems like he really helped his team out there and had some good coaching. As for that, we are done with the NBA and going straight into our NHL recap. If you don't know, there's the format where they split into 4 different divisions: the East, West, the Canada division in the South, and teams play within their division as they played the whole year. They played 56 games. within their division, playing each team 8 times, or in the Canada division 10 times as their last team. And the top 4 seeds in each division make the playoff. The one plays the 4, 2 plays the 3. Then the winner of those series play each other. So it's all interdivisional until the conference championship, and that is made for some great games, some new great rivalries, as we see in the Lightning and the Tampa Bay and the Florida Panthers playoff series, the Battle of Florida. That has been an unbelievable series. We have the Predators down 2-1 against Carolina. Carolina secured the President's Trophy, the best team in the league. They were really dominant, and the Predators won that double overtime game last night. Must win for them. They got it done. Carolina leads that series 2-1. Like I said before, the Lightning and Florida series. Florida is a 2 seed. Tampa Bay is the 3 seed below Carolina and below the Panthers. Surprisingly, as they were the defending champions, but they were without Stankmos and Kucherov for the whole year. But they're back now for the playoffs as they lead that series 3-1. As for the East, the Islanders and Penguins are knotted at 2 apiece. It's going to be a huge game 5. It goes up 3-2. That has been a great series so far. And going into the East, the Boston Bruins lead the Washington Capitals 3-1. They broke a record. They had 12 straight playoff games where the winner was decided by 1 goal. The first 3 of those games went into overtime. Capitals won the first one in overtime. Bruins won the second one, and then Bruins won in double overtime. They won 3 straight, leading that series 3-1. Looking to close it out tomorrow on Sunday in Game 5 in the nation's capital. In Canada, the Canadians lead the all very good Toronto Maple Leafs this year. Lead them 1-0. Their second game is tonight in Toronto. The Maple Leafs will be without their captain for the rest of the playoffs as John Tavares took a knee to the head, went to the hospital. He's now cleared from the hospital without spine damage or anything like that. It's pretty wobbly, scary to see, but I'm pretty sure he's okay. And Canadians look to get a 2-series lead over the 1 seed in the North Canada division. As for the Edmonton Oilers, they are falling behind Winnipeg. They are down 2-0. They, of course, have Connor McDavid and Liam Draisaitl. McDavid with 105 points, most points in the league this year. He's had an unbelievable year. And even if he didn't have any goals, he would still be second or third in the league with the amount of points, with the amount of assists he had with Draisaitl. That's a filthy combination right there, them two. Really sucks. They should be a better team than they are with that offensive power. No, defensive goaltending is just not up to par with how good their offensive is, but hopefully they can win the next game and trail 2-1 that series. But for now, they're down 2-0 against the 3 seed. In the West, the Avalanche lead the Blues 3-0. No surprise there, as they are. Wait, I might have screwed something up there. I'm pretty sure Colorado won the President's Trophy. Carolina is the 2.
They tied with the Golden Knights.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Jason. Carolina was leading for pretty much most of the year until the end there, where the Colorado Avalanche stole it from them. Carolina 1 game behind the Golden Knights, which Colorado got the tiebreaker. Carolina, the 3 seed, not the President's Trophy winner. Colorado's the President's Trophy winner. No surprise, they're up 3-0, looking for the sweep tomorrow night. And the Golden Knights lead the Minnesota Wild 2-1. That is a great series as well. A lot of people have Vegas going to the finals, Vegas and Colorado. Because it's interdivisional, they won't play each other until the conference finals. It will actually be the divisional finals, and that would be an amazing series to watch. As for my picks, I got Vegas versus Carolina in that conference, and then Boston versus Winnipeg. Winnipeg is up 2-0 over Oilers, and I think they have some good firepower going. It will be interesting to see how these matchups go out. I got Vegas versus, of course, the Bruins in the finals. There will not be a conference championship trophies awarded this year, as it is messed up, so we won't see the Prince of Wales trophy and the other trophy not happening this year, sadly, but we will have some great series to watch going forward, as we hope our Bruins can take it home and get it back from what they did in 2019, losing in Game 7. Other than that, that is it for NHL, and I will send it over to Brandon heading into football.
Yeah, so we just had the draft Me and Jason recapped that last week and talked about a few of the games, notable games to talk about. We'll talk a little bit more with our special guest, who will be joining us very shortly. But right now we want. I saw this on Good Morning Football, and I thought we should do as well. Our way too early Super Bowl 56 picks, and I'll start us off. A lot of great teams since last year. Last year we had some great matchups. This year, anticipated matchups as well. I think a lot of people think the favorites are going to be Chiefs and Bucks in the Super Bowl, but I'm gonna give you a different one. I'm gonna go Bills and Seahawks, and I got the Bills taking home the Lombardi Trophy. Jason?
Yeah, I think those teams are they have good chances. The thing with the Seahawks is I don't know if they're gonna be close to winning their division because I mean you got a healthy 49ers defense. The Cardinals are gonna be good with JJ Watt, and we know they're rumored to get Julio Jones possibly. And the Rams acquiring Matthew Stafford, one of the best defenses in football, arguably the best in football. I think they are. Um, I mean, I think Russ will find his way into the playoffs somehow, but they do have a tough schedule. And the Bills, like you mentioned, they are a really fun team to watch, and they were very close to making the Super Bowl last year. They lost by a few possessions to the Chiefs in that AFC Championship game. I'm actually going to go an anticipated one. I'm going a Super Bowl 55 rematch in Super Bowl 56. I have the Chiefs taking on the Buccaneers in this one. I think the Chiefs, they run the AFC. It's not even close to me, in my opinion. I do think the Bills are a good number 2 team, but the Chiefs, with their explosive offense, with Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, and all those guys, they lost Watkins, but their O-line's looking nice. They picked up Joe Tooney, even though they lost Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. I think their O-line's going to be really, really good, and Mahomes will be protected and stay healthy throughout the entire year. And with the Bucks, I don't see anyone taking that team down. They are looking like one of the best teams. They're going to look like one of the best teams for a while because you obviously have that offense with Brady, Evans, Godwin, Gronk, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. You got all those guys. I might have said a wrong name there, but you got a good O line. And that defense is pretty nice. You got Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, of course, Ndamukong Suh, all those guys. And I just think that the Bucks are going to be the team to make it out of the. Scotty Miller, of course, wide receiver 4. He's working his way up. Cam, thank you for reminding me. I also got Tyler Johnson, of course, wide receiver 5 on that team. Yeah, Scotty Miller is a speed threat. We know he's faster than Tyreek Hill, as he says, and he's going to be a great target for him. And then we have that defense and O line. You got Tristan Wirfs on that O line. The defense, you can go on about that. But I do have the Chiefs beating the Bucks in the Super Bowl this year. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a really, really close one. Both teams are elite, and they're gonna come out of their conferences really, really high. But I think the explosive offense of Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, that's just unstoppable. And I think Mahomes will get his second Super Bowl ring.
Like we said, this is the way too early Super Bowl picks. So I'm kind of throwing out 2 teams that have the potential to be good and have the potential to get something done. I have the Buffalo Bills over the Arizona Cardinals. I think if Kyler Murray stays healthy, that team can be really good. If they get Julio with D-Hop, that receiving core will be really good. And we know their D-line is going to be unstoppable now with J.J. Watt, and I forget his name right now. Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, and Chandler Jones. So their D-line is going to be really good. Their defense is going to be good. If Kyle Murray stays healthy, I think that can be a really good team that has the potential to do something dangerous. And in the AFC, I have the Buffalo Bills. They were just short this year, losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I think they can get it done this year. I think they have the firepower now, and they're really getting up there. They're a good team. Both those teams have the potential to do something great, and I think every Super Bowl is, of course, going to be amazing. Who knows what the season's going to turn out to be, but I have the Bills over the Cardinals as these 2 teams have the potential to lift off, win their divisions, and be great in the playoffs, and get a revenge tour if you're the Buffalo Bills and beat the Chiefs if they can do it. All right. We want to welcome Mike Reiss, the Patriots ESPN reporter, on our show. It is great to have him. He'll be answering some of our Patriots questions. We have a few questions. They're gearing up for a new season. We're hoping they'll be better than last year, at least with a fresh quarterback. Who knows how he's going to do? I know a bunch of us wanted to see Justin Fields fall. Didn't happen, but we still got Mac Jones, so we're all excited for that. We'll start off with the first question on thoughts on last year's season. What were some positives and takeaways, as it was Bill Belichick's first losing season as a head coach since 2000, as the Patriots went 7-9. It was a decent season, but we're Pats fans. We expect more, as they are a dynasty that is slowly going down.
Definitely, Cam. I would say one of the positives was what Lawrence Guy, the defensive tackle, said the other day, which was that season didn't go the way they wanted, but no one really gave up, and it showed that they have a good group of guys, like core guys, that are in it for the right reasons. So that would be a positive. I think the other thing to look at would be just the development of some young players, like that as they move forward, they're going to be looking for some of their young guys to, develop into bigger contributors. And like Kyle Duggar, their top draft pick from last year, a safety from Lenore Ryan. He played 50% of the snaps, a little bit more than that. And he showed a lot of promise. So it's experience that he gets guys like that they hope will develop into larger roles. Like that can be viewed as a positive from last season.
Yeah, we had both. We had some reporters from the New England Revolution join us on our podcast recently, and talking from their perspective, reporting during a pandemic was not obviously the easiest thing. And so we wanted to learn from a Patriots perspective, what was it like with virtual Zooms, wearing masks, and the atmosphere?
So the masks is probably no different than you guys, at school, right? Like it's just an adjustment, but the school's the same, right? But it's just more the mask that you're wearing is sort of just takes a little bit of adjusting to, right? So the mask for me wasn't that big of a deal. But the virtual reporting and the interviews was a lot different. Usually you're in the locker room and you can just go up to a player one-on-one, introduce yourself, have face-to-face interaction where you can read each other's body language and facial expressions. It's a lot harder to do that through the computer, so I think it's just another layer removed from really where you want to be. So I look forward to getting back in the locker room, and having some more one-on-one conversations with players. Usually when you're on a Zoom, I mean, you might be talking to a player, but everyone else is listening too, so you get less exclusive stuff as well in this type of setting.
Okay, our next question. I'm pretty sure Brand put this one together. It's a good question. So of course, Tom Brady won his Super Bowl last year with the Bucks, getting that ring number 7. So just as someone who's been with Tom Brady and reported on him for years, do you expect a similar season next year from him? And you think the Bucks will go back to back?
So for Tom, I do expect a similar season, because one thing I've learned, Jason, is never to bet against Tom Brady. Like every time I bet against him, he's proven me wrong. That's why last year in the Super Bowl, a lot of people were picking the Chiefs. I was like, no, it'll be the Buccaneers, So to follow sort of that pattern, like I wouldn't pick against them this year. They have all their players back. They have a fairly reasonable schedule by the looks of it. And they have another year of Tom in the system, which was sort of a little bit of an adjustment, last year, and they hit their stride late in the year. So everything aligns really well for the Buccaneers to do it again. They will have a little added pressure that they didn't have last year. So we'll see how they handle that and deal with that. But something tells me with Tom there as the last quarterback to go back to back in 2003, 2004, he'll have the guys ready and he won't let that pressure get to them.
I got a follow-up question about that, and want to know your thoughts on how much Tom Brady took this Buccaneers team from where they were at the end of the 2019 season, with Jameis Winston throwing 30 for 30, 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns, and going from abysmal season to a Super Bowl team, and how much is that part of Brady, and how much is that on Bruce Arians?
So it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think, Brandon, the first part is like the Bucs had a lot of talent, right? Like that's a good team. So it wasn't like Tom came in and all of a sudden like they went from a bad team to like a Super Bowl team. That defense is pretty good. It was good last year too. So I think what Tom did for them was he just gave them a roadmap because he had done it so many times before. He had been to so many Super Bowls and had 6 championships before he got there. So when he told them, look, this is the way it has to be done, everyone followed him because he was a living, breathing example to them of, hey, look, he did this in the past and look what he got out of it. We're trying to get there. Let's follow Tom. So he gave them a belief, a reason to follow. And I think that's very powerful. But Tom alone, that he didn't elevate them by himself. Like it took the collective team. Some of those wins were defensive wins, or complementary football, special teams, defense, and offense. But if you were going to list the factors as to what changed for them from last year to this year, like you're still going to put Tom number 1 on the list, right? Like Bruce Arians going to be further down there, but I guess the point I would push back on is it wasn't just Tom. Like him alone wasn't enough, but he was the main factor.
Moving on from the 2020 year into the 2021 year, we wanted to get your thoughts on the 2021 NFL draft, as it was arguably one of the best Patriots drafts in a long time, as they did a great job. And we wanted to know which 2021 drafted player might have the most impact, whether it's Mac Jones, the DN Christian Barmore, or Ronnie Perkins. A lot of Alabama guys coming away like usual from their Bill Belichick and Nick Saban community there. So we want to know who might have the most impact starting this season out.
So Kim, I think there's a couple different ways to answer it. Big picture, they hope Mac Jones has the greatest impact because quarterback at 15, you're thinking he's going to be your franchise quarterback for the next 10 plus years. The reason why he might not be the answer specific to 2021 is they might want to wait, to put him in there. If Cam Newton shows, that he can play consistent winning football, like we saw him play in the first couple weeks of last season, before he got COVID, like there's a chance they might stick with Cam this year and say, Mac, take this year behind the scenes, sort of similar to the way Patrick Mahomes did it with the Chiefs behind Alex Smith before they turned to Mahomes. So that's sort of the bigger picture. In the smaller picture, don't sleep on, I would say, the running back from Oklahoma, Ramondre Stevenson, I think is how you pronounce his first name. Stevenson, the last name. He's a big running back. He's like 230 pounds. He plays special teams. He catches the ball pretty well. So when you put all that together, like he's got a chance to not just, be on the roster, but to be, making an impact on game day behind Damian Harris, behind James White, maybe giving Sony Michel a run for the money for his playing time, maybe even his roster spot. Keep an eye on him just because the combination of the position he plays and how he might factor in on special teams. He's a guy that I would put at the top of the list. And that's not to say Christian Barmore, the 2nd round defensive tackle from Alabama, or Ronnie Perkins, the outside linebacker in the 3rd round, but those guys won't contribute. But something tells me Stevenson might have the clearest path initially to make the biggest difference.
I know you talked about Stevenson making an impact, but I think Mac Jones was definitely, the question is, will he see playing time this year? When will he? And I think another question is, will Bill Belichick take kind of what the New Orleans Saints did with two QB, a duo, two-headed quarterback, you could say, with Drew Brees and Taysom Hill? Do we see Cam Newton, Mac Jones kind of two-headed monster?
It's possible. And it's intriguing, Brandon, to think like that. I think what they'll do is they won't make that decision now. They'll wait to see what it looks like in practice. And And that means like going through the spring, like this month and into June, and going through these practices in shorts and t-shirts, teaching the system to them. And then when they get to training camp at the end of July, that's when they'll compete. And if Mac competes and shows that he's better than Cam, like they'll go to Mac. Like it's about who's going to give the team the best chance to win. If it's Cam, they might say, like we just want to go all Cam. But if it's Mac, they might go to Cam and say, like, how do you feel about a Taysom Hill type role, where you're coming in from time to time to give us a different look. And a lot of that will be contingent in that hypothetical scenario and how Cam feels. Like, does he want to do that? Or does he just want to say, what, this didn't work out. Let me try to go play traditional quarterback, maybe somewhere else.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting to see. I mean, never really seen an Belichick system, but if it happens, that'll be pretty cool. One question that I thought of recently was about the Julian Edelman retirement. I wanted to know if you had any insight on like what like really sparked like his downfall of his career. Was it that big injury like last year, or just was it something mental, or was it just a collection of injuries throughout his career? Was anything like that?
Jason, as we talk on May 22nd, Julian Edelman celebrating his 35th birthday today. So, and really the reason I bring that up, Father Time, time just caught up with him. At 35, his knee was not in condition for him to keep playing. He has what he described as a bone-on-bone condition. So usually you have cartilage in between two bones in the knee area, and that cartilage was all stripped away. So the bone was grinding against the other bone, creating a lot of pain for him and really not allowing him to cut and play with authority. So he always said, and this is his words, "I'll play till the wheels fall off." And I love this quote that he had in the with Michael Irvin on Michael Irvin's podcast. He goes, "My wheel is off and it's rolling down Route 495, which we all know that from where we live. And the wheels just fell off and he won't be playing anymore because of that."
It's tough to see him go as we love him here in New England. But as we're talking about older guys, why did the Patriots re-sign Brian Hoyer? Is an interesting re-sign there as they have Stidham, and we never thought the Patriots would have 4 quarterbacks. Interesting signing there. Maybe it's to use Hoyer as a veteran to Mac. Other than that, we can't really think of a reason of why they re-sign him, as we think that even Stidham would be a better quarterback than him if he has to go on the field at one point or another.
Yeah, so Cameron, it's interesting because they don't have enough repetitions to go around to give snaps to 4 quarterbacks. So that's why I think it surprised some people that they would bring in a 4th quarterback. The first point I would say is they're at a time where they have 90 players on their roster. And so there's a lot of luxury in those spots from 80 to 90. And that's really what we're talking about here, the final 10 spots on the roster. And that's not to say they aren't important, but they're not as important as the other 80 spots, right, on the roster. In fact, last year, the Patriots didn't even have players 80 to 90 on their roster because they only took 80 to training camp as part of their COVID-19 protocols. So that's sort of the first part of it. But the second part of it is think of the big picture. So like there's going to be a competition between Cam Newton and Mac Jones to see who becomes a starting quarterback. And let's just say, and we don't know this, but let's say Mac wins the job. He comes in and he shows he's ready to go as a rookie, right? And that's what we heard when the 49ers were rumored to be picking him, that he was the most pro-ready. So let's say that proves to be true. It stands to reason that Bill Belichick would go to Cam Newton and say, "Cam, you were a good soldier for us. Like you did everything we could ask for. We're going to go with Mac. What do you want to do, Cam? Like, do you want to stay as the backup, or do you want us to cut you free so you can have an opportunity to go somewhere else?" Right? We don't know that Mac's going to win the job, but let's just say, like, we have to leave open the possibility and then that next step. And let's say Cameron says, like, "I'm done here." Then what do you have? You have Mac, You have maybe Brian Hoyer, maybe Jarrett Stidham. Like Jarrett Stidham's got to show something. Like he might not be around either, you know? So I think that's why they brought Brian back. Just they had flexibility on their 90-man roster and they just want to protect themselves. It's almost like taking out an extra insurance policy, at that position. And your point about him mentoring Mac is really well said because he's exactly the type of guy that you want around a rookie quarterback. That's why the Jets were trying to sign Brian Hoyer for their rookie quarterback, Zach Wilson.
When the NFL schedule came out last weekend, every Patriots fan circled that Week 4 matchup with Brady coming home. But I think that's everyone's obviously most anticipated game to look at. But if you have to exclude that game from the 17-game schedule, as we have now added another week, what games are you looking forward to watching in this upcoming season?
So that's actually, Brandon, I love stuff like this. I'm going to actually pull up the schedule right now so I can sort of look at it and take a closer peek. I have it off the top. Obviously, they're opening with Miami. You always get excited for the opener. I'll tell you, like the second to last game against Jacksonville, against Trevor Lawrence, like I'm sort of excited to see Trevor Lawrence just because I want to see what he's all about, right? Like, I mean, I wouldn't put that as my most favorite game, but like that's sort of like I want to see how Trevor Lawrence reacts January 2nd in Foxborough. Like it might be a big snowstorm. Like, has he ever even seen snow before? Like that one's sort of, I'm interested in that. So I would say the Chargers, like I love that game at the Chargers on Halloween. I could see Patriots fans making it a weekend in LA and taking over that stadium on Halloween. And I love Justin Herbert. Like what an exciting young quarterback. So that one really is one that I had circled, and I'm also excited to hopefully be there. How about at Carolina the next week? If Cam is still the quarterback, like Cam going back to Carolina is as big in Charlotte as Tom coming back here. Like Cam Newton's like one of the greatest players in Panthers history. And I sense no one in New England is excited about that because I don't think anyone really wants to see Cam be the quarterback after what they saw last year, but we have to leave open that possibility. The Browns coming to town after that, like they're an exciting team with Baker Mayfield. I just think there's a lot of great games. Buffalo, obviously, they won the division. So I could go down the list, but those are a few that come to mind.
Yeah,
I think this is the most anticipated season, and there's just so many great games with Patriots in National League, and I think want to know what your thoughts of adding the 17th game, and I actually like it, and it's this way. I've always loved the international games, and teams have always not enjoyed taking away a home game for that. So I want to know what your thoughts on adding the 17th game with the AFC versus NFC.
So I like it, Brandon. I like the 17th game as long as the players don't, aren't harmed from an injury perspective. So I'll trust some of the data that the league and the Players Association put together to sort of vote on that 17th game. I look at it as a huge positive in that you might have three preseason games, and those have a chance to be better quality games because you're taking out a fourth preseason game, which usually isn't very good. So I think the overall product, I hope we're going to see an improved product over 17 regular season games and 3 preseason games, so 20 total, than we would have seen with 4 preseason games and 16 regular season games. That's my hope. I'm curious to see if my hope is actually the reality.
One question we have, as we will see Cam Newton and Max Jones battle for that starting job. The Patriots have a lot of good weapons this year. We got Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, even N'Keal Harry, and then those rookie tight ends from last year. But we've seen in rumors lately that a lot of teams are going after some big-time names that are in the trade market, such as someone like Julio Jones. He's a big name that's come up in a few rumors. and I think that he'd be a definite wide receiver 1 on most teams that he'd go to. So do you think the Patriots are a contender to go for like a superstar weapon, or just a superstar in general? Like via trade, and they're gonna pull the trigger on a trade, or do you think they're fine with their core that they have? Because I mean, like you said, they have a lot of roster spots they need to cut to the 53-man roster and the practice squad. And do you think the Patriots are going to try to add some big time player through a trade?
So, Jason, I think if you have a chance to get Julio Jones at a reasonable cost, you owe it to your organization to explore that. And I think that's probably every team in the league, is what I would say on that. Now, certain teams are going to be better positioned to possibly pull that off, because remember, this is a year where a lot of teams didn't have salary cap space because the cap went down this year for the first time ever, really, in the free agent era. But the Patriots had cap space, and they still have cap space. So if the Falcons are really sort of determined to trade Julio Jones because they're in a tough cap situation, and you can get him for, call it 60 cents on the dollar, 75 cents on the dollar, that's something I could absolutely see Bill Belichick being interested in. But my sense would be he wouldn't be alone. I think we'll see a few other teams in that mix, and then it would just come down to where the market lead to what it would cost to acquire him. And if the Patriots are comfortable with that, by all means, I could see them going in that direction.
Yeah, we want to thank you, Mike, for taking your time to talk to us, and we've definitely enjoyed hearing your responses to all of our questions, and we look forward just as much as you do for the Week 1 game against Miami, and if the Patriots can turn around after the abysmal year they had last year.
Yeah, it's great, Brandon. You guys did a great job. Cameron, Jason, is that a Sweet Feet James White shirt you're wearing, or is that a different?
James White, yep.
There it is. I love it. James is back too, so I noticed that. You guys did a great job. I love the backdrop. Keep up the good work. You asked great questions, and let's see what the Patriots can do. Maybe they can give you a more exciting season. I think they will.
All right, that'll do it for our Q&A and as well as for our episode. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time.